Hello, I'm Daniel, Cineclub on numerous Pokemon forums, and this is my report on the 2014 UK Nationals at Manchester. If you haven't already, check out the previous video where I give an analysis of the team I used here. Otherwise, let's do a quick recap before getting on with things. My team for the tournament was as follows: Mega Mawile, Azumarill with Assault Vest, Rotom-Heat with Choice Specs, Talonflame with Charti Berry, Amoonguss with Lum Berry, and Gudra with Expert Belt. The intention for the team is that it's quite bulky and hard hitting, with an additional boost in speed from Tailwind when required. On to the actual tournament, my first round opponent was a guy named Josh Delic, who said that this was his first Pokemon competition and that he hadn't actually played competitively before. At preview, his team was Charizard, Galade, Delphox, Gengar, Venusaur, and Jolteon. I know that he started with Galade and Jolteon against my Mawile and Talonflame, and then he brought Charizard Y and Gengar in the back, whilst I brought Rotom and someone else who I forget, probably Gudra, but beyond that I don't remember the specifics of this match. It wasn't that challenging a battle for me. The only significant thing I think was that Galade didn't manage anything before being brave birded by Talonflame. I won, and we talked briefly afterwards before wishing each other luck and moving on to the next round. Round 2, I was against Luigi Lagudice, apologies if I've mispronounced the name, who goes by the online username LP Rocks. His team was Ferrothorn, Gyarados, Manectric, Politoed, Ludicolo, and Kingdra. It was pretty obviously a rain team. Rain is not usually a problem for me, but the idea of Ferrothorn really threw me off for the first part of the game. I had 3 fire-type moves across my team, but in rain, fire is far less effective, so I felt like I had no real counter for it. Talonflame and Mawile were selected to lead, with Gudra and Azumarill in the back. My thinking was that Azumarill's attacks would benefit from the rain, and Gudra is good against it, but in retrospect Amoonguss would have been a far better choice than Azumarill, so most members of his team either resisted Azumarill's attacks or are super effective against her. But that's the decision I made at the time, and that's what I had to play with. Battle began against Ludicolo and Politoed, with Gyarados and Mega Manectric in reserve against my Talonflame and Mawile. I immediately swapped out Mawile for Gudra, as I didn't think Mawile would make that much of an impact at that point. Why I didn't either protect or at least quick guard with Talonflame here, I don't know, but instead I went for Brave Bird and suffered for it, flinching from Fake Out followed by a rain boosted Surf from Politoed, which also raised Ludicolo's special attack thanks to Absorb Bulb. Amazingly, bulky Talonflame pulled through and survived with just 1 hit point, a feat that I threw away next turn by Brave Birding into a Gyarados switch. I figured that Ludicolo wouldn't switch out and lose its special boost, and I didn't want to leave it powered up on the field, but attacking it was a really bad play. As my Talonflame is intended to be a supporter, it would have served me far better to go for a Tailwind or switch out to preserve her. But I didn't, and she fainted, leading to Azumarill coming in on a really bad matchup against Gyarados and Mega Manectric. Both Gudra and Azumarill survived the respective Ice Fang and Thunderbolt, but there wasn't much I could do to reclaim the game by that point. I think it'd be fair to say neither of us played as well as we could have done, but I made far more and far more costly mistakes than Luigi did, and he definitely deserved a win here. Afterwards I asked him why he didn't bring Ferrothorn, and whilst agreeing with my assessment that I couldn't have done much to him in the rain, he pointed out that Gudra completely walls Ferrothorn. I guess the lesson is not to get flustered and try and view things from the opponent's point of view. Round 3 was against Gareth Buckley, or Frozen85 on Nugget Bridge. He had an interesting team with a few of my favourite Pokemon, and it was a team that only got more interesting as the battle went on. His team was Zapdos, Amoonguss, Gudra, Aegislash, Gyarados, and Lucario. This was the only game of the tournament that I didn't lead with Talonflame and Mawile, and it probably would have helped me to do so. Instead, I opened Talonflame and Gudra with Mawile and Rotom in back against his Aegislash and Zapdos. I became a little concerned when Zapdos immediately started using Charge. This worry was heightened when Zapdos demonstrated he had Roost, and really started to fret when Aegislash caused my Mawile, the only effective physical attacker on my team, to faint a few turns later. The battle then becomes a war of attrition between my Gudra and Zapdos, made interesting by both the peculiarities of our teams. Gareth's Gudra in particular was really interesting and deserves a big mention. He used Infestation at one point to keep my Rotom-Heat locked into Choice Specs Overheat, a play that could have caused me a lot of trouble had he not then used Bide with Gudra next turn, allowing me the hits I needed to get a knockout using my own Gudra and break that lock on switching. The match went on for a good while before I realised the in-game clock only had about 4 minutes left, and saw this as my opportunity to win. I couldn't beat Zapdos with his now immense special defense using either Gudra or Rotom, but I could get rid of his teammates and win by having more Pokemon when the timer ended. I just about managed this, taking down his Aegislash on the very last turn to win 2-1 in what we both said was a really exciting, pretty damn close game. For round 4, I was paired against Eden Bachelor, known online as Xenoblade Hero. Those who've watched my previous video might recall that I had some help from him with completing my team. Now, I'd made a couple of tweaks since then, but by and large he'd seen a complete readout a week before, so I wasn't expecting an easy game. Looking back, there are several moments that could have easily sent things the other way. His team at preview consisted of Mawile, Gyarados, Hydreigon, Raichu, Heracross, and Talonflame. I decided to leave Gudra behind because of the number of physical attacks in preview. Mawile and Rotom-Heat seemed like they checked the majority of the team between them, and lastly I chose Amoonguss, mostly because Azumarill doesn't like Raichu. But I'm really glad I did. Spore was so useful in getting the win for me here. I opened Talonflame Mawile against his Hydreigon and Gyarados. After exchanging Intimidate, I swapped out Mawile for Rotom, took Hydreigon's Fire Blast fine before getting hit with Gyarados' Waterfall. Were it not for that earlier Intimidate, I'm certain he would have fainted. However, I still played fairly risky with Rotom before switching him out, using Overheat on Gyarados anticipating the switch out and only surviving because Gyarados targeted Mawile that turn. The match went on for a good while, so I won't list everything that happened, but Amoonguss was definitely my most valuable Pokemon throughout the game. 3 Pokemon were asleep at various points thanks to him, and Hydreigon was actually outspared by Amoonguss in Tailwind. He definitely pulled his weight here. The last few minutes were really close, with at least one Pokemon fainting every turn for the last 4 rounds of the game, and it ended 2-0 with my Rotom taking out the sleeping Gyarados. Round 5 was against a Burr Ahmed, or Hedge282, one of the guys I've been hanging around with all day. I played him with a different team earlier whilst waiting for the tournament to begin, and I'd won that, but only thanks to a fortunate combination of Hurricane's shaky accuracy, Venusaur's healing bulk, and Venusaur's refusal to hurt himself in confusion. I also knew a Burr had come 10th in Europe in the then recent May International Challenge, further emphasising this wouldn't be an easy game. His team at preview was Lapras, Gyarados, Rotom-Heat, Garchomp, Aegislash and Aerodactyl. It's only now looking back at it that I've realised his team had a sort of prehistoric dragon thing going on, but anyway, I led Mawile and Talonflame with Goodra and Azumarill and back against his Garchomp and Rotom-Heat leads, supported by Mega Gyarados and Lapras. My first thought was to switch Mawile out into Goodra, as Mawile is weak to both Earthquake and Overheat. I also figured that Goodra should be a safe switch in, could outspeed and knock out Garchomp under Tailwind. However, a Burr went for a similar first round play to Eden in the previous game, double targeting with different types to deal with every possibility, bringing Goodra down to just 22 HP on a switch in. Next turn I went for the obvious Goodra attack on Garchomp and paid for it by losing her. Moved forward a few turns and my Azumarill and Mawile, at less than half health, are up against Mega Gyarados and Lapras. Mawile play rushed Gyarados to faint her, followed by Lapras missing 2 Hydro Pumps from Mawile. Looking back, those misses were actually incredibly important. Had they hit, Mawile would certainly have been knocked out, and there's no way I could have won otherwise. The final setup was Talonflame Mawile against Garchomp. Mawile was 61 HP left. I still have 2 turns of Tailwind left, but Garchomp probably still outspeeds me and I'm fairly sure I've lost. However, I decided to carry on and try for the play rough anyway. Garchomp uses Protect. I try to play rough again. Garchomp also goes to Protect again and it fails. Play rough gets the knockout, winning me the game. Asking about this afterwards, Burr explained that he thought Mawile would outspeed Garchomp in Tailwind, as that's what my team focuses around, and his only hope of winning would have been to stall out the remaining turns. That, I think, says loads about the psychological threat of Tailwind. Bring something relatively unknown against an opponent and there will be an element of caution when facing it, which paid off big time for me here. Overall, I'd say a Burr probably played better in both our games. My wins came from fairly substantial luck on my part. If either of Lapras' Hydro Pumps had hit Mawile, I couldn't have won. He didn't seem too upset by either loss, so hopefully we'll get to meet up and play again at some point. Round 6 and the first of 2 German opponents, Josh Schmidt. I don't think he has any online presence or username for Pokemon, but he did make top cut, so I don't know. His team struck me as being very standard, consisting of Talonflame, Salamence, Garchomp, Kangaskhan, Aegislash and Rotom Wash. The usual opening for me, Talonflame and Mawile as leads with Amoonguss and Rotom-Heat in back. His leads were Kangaskhan and Rotom Wash with Talonflame and Garchomp in reserve. My Mawile and Rotom-Heat have good coverage over his team between them, with Rotom Wash being the only Pokemon in the opponent's team that I was a bit worried about, so I bought Amoonguss to deal with that. The plan from the start was to use Amoonguss to deal with Wash, putting it to sleep until I could deal with it properly, then use the other 2 with Talonflame support to mop up the rest. And that's basically what I did. Kangaskhan immediately swapped from Garchomp, whilst I withdrew Mawile for Amoonguss, preserving Mawile's Intimidate for a later Kangaskhan encounter. I think I must have run out of time on one of the selections or misclicked or something because I accidentally used Spore on Garchomp, who immediately cured it with a Lumberry. But this didn't turn out to be too bad a thing, confirming that Garchomp didn't have either a Focus Sash or a Choice Scarf, and that Rotom could then come in and take him in with a Hidden Power Ice. Meanwhile, Amoonguss sent Rotom Wash to sleep. Besides Mawile dodging a burn that could have otherwise proven tricky, I don't know if there's a great deal to say or explain about this matchup. I think the key was identifying that Rotom Wash was the threat to my team and neutralising him. Round 7 was against another German player, Max Kraffert, who I believe goes by the username Nerfius online. His team at preview was Rotom-Heat, Lucario, Venusaur, Meowstic, Salamence and Azumarill. I led Talonflame and Mawile with Rotom-Heat and Goodra in back. Max led Azumarill and Meowstic, keeping Venusaur and his own Rotom-Heat in reserve. This turned out to be a very short game. My Rotom took out Azumarill second turn with Thunderbolt, and on the 4th turn I made one of the most significant predictions I've made in a long time, fire blasting Venusaur on his switch in to get a clean knockout. I realised the turn before that Meowstic had nothing else left to do. He'd gone up all the screens and whatever other support he was supposed to do, so it was very likely he'd switch out next turn. So instead of also piloting Dragon Pulse, I checked his team, which I'd written down at preview. Azumarill had fainted, Rotom and Meowstic were on the field, leaving Lucario, Venusaur and Salamence as potential switch-ins, with Lucario or Venusaur the most likely as they're both potentially Megas. Both of them are weak to fire, and Meowstic doesn't resist it even if he stayed in, so I thought Fire Blast would be the best choice, and this proved to be so. The rest of the game after that was fairly nondescript, just wearing down the rest of his team. No one on my side fainted. Afterwards, we discussed Meowstic, and I recommended that he always have at least one attacking move to deal with situations like the one here, where otherwise he's completely dead weight. If the previous game was an example of me playing well, round 8 was the opposite. Zambetham super integration on Nugget Bridge, and my opponent this game played well and took full advantage of all the mistakes I made throughout. His team consisted of Rotom Wash, Sableye, Aegislash, Tyranitar, Salamence and Kangaskhan. For anyone who's interested, Sam has written up a report on Nugget Bridge which explains his team. I decided to once again lead Talonflame Mawile with Amoonguss and Gudra in back, while Sam went for Sableye and Rotom Wash with Aegislash and Kangaskhan held in reserve. From my point of view, this entire game was just one big mind game, avoiding Sableye's taunts to try and spore threats before getting burned. The problem was amplified by the fact that Aegislash is one massive guessing game in itself. King's Shield is enough of a threat that I wanted to avoid using Mawile on it for the fear of an attack drop, but not attacking it risks a substitute. Gudra and Mawile were the only two I had with me who could break Aegislash's substitute, and I was certain that either Tyranitar or Kangaskhan would be in the back as the Mega. Dealing with them would require that I preserve Mawile, difficult considering the two opposing Will-O-Wisp users. Looking back on it, one of the more critical plays was after a few switches from both sides. Aegislash had just switched in and Gudra had taken Sableye down to just under half health the previous turn with the Dragon Pulse. I was anticipating a substitute, so I went for a Fire Blast, straight into a King's Shield. Sableye then foul played Gudra out of the match, leaving me with just a burnt Mawile to take on both Aegislash and the Mega in the back. In hindsight, targeting Sableye here could have saved me the game, preserving Gudra and removing a threat, especially since Gudra outsped him. After Gudra had fainted, with Mawile crippled through burn, I realised my only real opportunity to take out Aegislash was Spore, allowing Mawile the multiple hits now required to get the knockout. Amazingly, at one point I did manage to achieve those conditions, having Amoonguss out against Rotom Wash and a freshly swapped in Aegislash, with 2 turns remaining of Tailwind. But for whatever reason, I have no idea what I was thinking, I spored Rotom. What I'm even more confused by watching the replay is that next turn I broke Aegislash's substitute with a Sucker Punch, still with Tailwind up, perfect conditions, yet Giga Drained Rotom instead of sporing Aegislash. A few turns after, I noticed the time was running out and I basically hit panic mode, going all out offensive and making lots of reckless decisions that Sam took full advantage of and basically wiped the floor with me in the last few minutes. I think we both realised Aegislash was the key Pokemon here, but I seem to forget that at the most crucial moment. Evidently I've somehow hardwired into my brain that Rotom Wash is the ultimate threat to my team or something like that. The other thing is I had several opportunities to take out Sableye in the game which I didn't take, and it almost certainly would have helped. But then it's easy to say all this post game, and the fact is that I didn't do very well at the time. Sam did, outplaying me and getting a well-deserved victory. So at the end of the day I'd achieved 6 wins to 2 losses, putting me in that awkward bubble where you might make top cut but it's all based on how your opponents did. After a 45-minute wait, the results were posted, and unfortunately I didn't make top cut, but never mind. I had a really great day, met some fantastic people, and I think me and my team did pretty well overall. There are a good number of people I want to say thanks to. Firstly, Nugget Bridge user Notamola, who had the in-game name Sunny. Probably one of the more important ones as he bred a few otherwise awkward to get Pokemon, including Ferrothorn and Aerodactyl, but most notably Hidden Power Ice Rotom. Thanks to Bird, James and Andrew, who I ended up hanging around with most of the day. All great guys, and hopefully we'll get to meet up again at another event or something. An extension of that, thanks to everyone I played against or even just spoke to throughout the event. I didn't meet a single person who wasn't really friendly and awesome. Big shout out to Eden, Xenoblade Hero, for helping with my team when I needed it and being a great guy in general. More broadly, thanks to everyone in the Pokemon community who's created content to help others get better. It's all been a massive help in preparing for this. And finally, thanks for taking the time to watch this. At this point, I should probably encourage people to subscribe to my YouTube. It's going to be more general animations than specifically Pokemon, but if this proves popular, I may well end up doing more for the future tournaments or something, you never know. And on a similar note, feel free to check out my website, animatedaniel.com. Thank you for watching.